being quiet, sentiment, benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoga Vairakana Mahamudra Manipama Chavala Pravataya
Please rise for the chanting of the three refuges, and as you do so, gently smooth your mats and cushions. So we will be chanting the three refuges, being Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, first in Sino-Korean. We do not expect you to know the words or the translations, but please give it a shot. Just as you get the melody, throw your voice in. Feel the sensation of your breath and vibration commingling with everyone else. And then afterwards, we will recite it in English.
Quim
go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
On this 7th day of September, in the year of 2025, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be an historically Black neighborhood during times of racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening, and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, our chanting, and full presence here at this service extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. We will sit in meditation again. doing your best to breathe through the movements. Noticing the sensation of the breath, the muscles, the joints, the ligaments, sinews, and tendons. Stretching to the left. And then over to the right. Clasping the hands behind the back. Folding over. Turning to the left. And again to the right. And placing hands on hips, upper thighs, and making deep circles. Placing the left arm overhead, stretching out the left side. And again on the right. Placing hands behind your neck, quickly expelling the air. And then turning again to the left. To the right. And then reaching hands high up, as high as you can, stretching out the spine. And then releasing. Well, please sit comfortably as I figure out how to put this microphone on. Okay, is that good? Okay, is that good?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. My voice is very loud. Oh, well. This bright light coming in from these windows over here. The sound of the ebb and flow of the traffic on Packard as we sit. And so many people here present. So welcome, all of you, dear Buddhas. I am Mosamsam Lisa Inouye, and I am one of our newly ordained Dharma teachers just as of this summer. I was freshly harvested And I sit before you today. This is my very first 10 a.m. Dharma talk, so I am a little bit nervous and also a little bit excited to share the Dharma with you. Thank you. So I am going to use as kind of the frame of this talk our Ullambana service, which immediately follows this service. And what I mean by a frame is I'm taking some themes from the service and using them to share some Dharma with you. So I'll be talking about some big themes. So loss, karma, compassion, and sangha. So traditionally, the Ullambana service is held on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. And it's a ritual intended to show gratitude to our parents for having raised us, but also just to extend and transfer our merit to our ancestors, both living and deceased, especially those who may be suffering in some sort of supernatural, torturous realms after their consciousness on earth. And the Sanskrit word Ullambana translates to deliverance from the suffering of being upside down or suspended. So this Ullambana service or ritual is a way to help those who are suffering from this experience of being held upside down or suspended. And I'm sure you've all had the experience following a loss of feeling not right, not quite yourselves. That the intensity of that emotional experience feels very much, in fact, like that you just want to be right side up again. And this service, we hope, helps with that. And perhaps this Dharma talk, fingers crossed. So this ritual has its roots in a sutra aptly entitled, The Buddha Speaks, the Ullambana Sutra. And it describes one of the Buddha's disciples, Mahamoggallana. So it describes Mahamoggallana's efforts to free his own mother from one of these torturous realms in the afterlife. And the sutra describes how after Mahamoggallana became enlightened, he, had this wisdom eye. He was able to see clearly all of these afterlife realms. And he discovered that his mother was stuck in the realm of the hungry ghosts and really suffering terribly. And so he wanted to repay his mother for having raised him here on earth, but he also didn't want her to suffer anymore. So he sought guidance from the Buddha. And the Buddha said, your efforts alone are really insufficient to help your mother from her present suffering, because she is in the realm of the hungry ghosts due to the consequences of her actions here on this earth. However, the Buddha did instruct Mahamoggallana that if he were to offer vows and mantras and bedding and incense and food, all of the things, many of which you can see up here before you today, to make these offerings along with the entirety of the Sangha being present. So he really needed to do this in community. That if he were able to do that, if he were able to get together the entire assembly of the 10 directions with all of these offerings, then in fact he would be assured that he would be able to move his mother out of this torturous afterlife. So how might we think about this teaching in a present-day context? So I'm going to be offering you my own interpretation while sharing my experience of continuing to work through the death of my mother in 2020. So I will just clarify that I will be talking about a loss that's pretty complicated by a lack of resolution, by my own guilt, and by shame, which are the hallmarks of a deeply ambivalent relationship. However, I recognize that there are certainly many types of loss that all of you here have experienced or have been experiencing that perhaps are different, maybe more straightforward in some ways. It could be that you simply miss someone or something and there's a huge void in your heart where they once were. And perhaps it's uncomplicated by these other factors that I'm going to be talking about. So I hope that for those of you maybe contending with this type of loss, that you'll still be able to glean something from my talk today. So when I reflect on this sutra, what really stands out to me is the persistence of karma. So Mahamoggallana required the assistance of huge numbers of the Holy Assembly, in addition to these tangible and intangible offerings, to move his mother to a realm where she was no longer suffering. And we're told in the sutra that this is simply due to the consequences of her own actions during this lifetime. So on the one hand, my scientific mind views this as a bit far-fetched. But when I extrapolate this idea of karma, so karma simply being cause and effect, because of this, there is that, it feels true to me as I reflect on it through this lens of my ongoing experience of grieving my mother's death. So prior to her death, in the beginning of 2020, my mother had lived with us for approximately 13 years. This had seemed necessary due to a number of factors, primarily financial and medical challenges that she had been contending with. And as the oldest child, I felt compelled to take this on. And as many of you know, or as you can probably guess, we did not have a very close relationship. And I was constantly challenged throughout the 13 years that she lived with us to manage my simmering anger and resentment throughout the entirety of our time together. I was very often short-tempered. I was curt. I was withholding, and I was cold. And these behaviors continue to haunt me. So following her death, I struggled and continue to struggle with loss and guilt. So the form that these have taken have evolved over time. They've become more complex, of course, as there's been more time and distance. And the narrative that I have now is a lot more intricate. But now that she's no longer physically present in my home, I do have the ability to see more clearly how she herself was affected by her own experiences of traumatic loss, of substance use, depression, anxiety, chronic illness, and pain. And as I reflect on the causes and conditions that shaped her, my guilt increases. Along with the sense of loss of not having been able to transcend my anger and resentment, to have been the type of person and daughter that I had hoped to be. So the cycle of being reminded of my mother's suffering, my behavior towards her, her vulnerability and death recurs on a daily basis. And I've gotten familiar with its ebb and flow. And I found that seeing this through the lens of karma, so these complex unfolding causes and conditions that are so strong and powerful, have been helpful in having compassion for the very challenged and suffering person that I was during the time that my mother was living with us. So this idea of cause and effect helps me see my guilt in a more objective manner. So when I recall how I behaved unskillfully and harmfully, of course it will arise. I violated my moral and ethical code. I violated the precepts again and again. And so guilt is the normal response to this. It's hardwired into our brains. But this acknowledgement is somehow reassuring to me, almost making it a little bit less personal and easier to bear. And so this way of viewing my guilt allows me to be with it, to let it wash over me as it starts in the pit of my stomach here and flows upward. I know not to resist it as it follows this familiar trajectory. And following the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths, I allow the suffering evoked by my guilt to simply be. And it does cease its hold on me, at least for the moment. So there's an additional component that I sprinkle into, that of compassion. So in the sutra, Mahamoggallana is motivated to help his mother in large part due to how deeply she was suffering. He felt compassion for her, despite the fact that her suffering was the direct result of her behaviors during her lifetime. At least that's what the sutra tells us. But in my own story, I'm offering this compassion to myself. I'm suffering because of the consequences of my behavior, while simultaneously recognizing that I'm a flawed human who is caught in the midst of complex parent-child dynamics. So guilt and compassion are equally called for and evoked. On a practical note, in order to more directly experience this compassion in the presence of my guilt, I will often place a hand on the part of my body that's experiencing it most distinctly. So it's usually here or here. And this seems to help my body receive this compassionate energy more easily. But in returning to the teachable themes from the sutra, we also see the importance of community or sangha. Mahamoggallana needs the support of the entire sangha. In fact, the Buddha's support is insufficient. So he needs the assembled sangha of the 10 directions in order to save his mother from the realm of the hungry ghosts, and in so doing find relief for himself too. We heal in relationship, in community. That's why we have morning rituals in all of our faith traditions to offer structure to this experience that's provided in community. And so although my siblings and I opted not to have a formal service following my mother's death, I talked about my complicated grief and loss with my siblings, my family, with my friends, my fellow Sangha members, my teacher. I journaled a lot about it, and now I'm sharing it with you today. And this, I believe, will continue to be an essential part of my just continuing to be with this ongoing cycle of grief and guilt, loss. And as I've been able to be more skillful in being with this guilt and loss matrix, it's actually the loss part that's been asserting itself more these days. So my mother was a wonderful cook. I really miss her cooking. She made the fluffiest omelets, just really suffused with air. And she made the tenderest broccoli, just so perfectly done. And since she's been gone, I have never had broccoli that's been the same. And I really miss how much she herself enjoyed a delicious meal. She took such gusto in that. I miss how thoroughly she would brush her hair. She would, it wasn't very long, but she would, start at the roots and go all the way to the ends, really exerting a lot of pressure over and over and over, making sure that all of the knots were out. And she would meticulously set it in curlers, in rollers, every single night. Even if she wasn't going anywhere the next day, and she usually wasn't, but she would still set her hair. And I miss how delighted she was by our son Ari, her first grandchild. And sometimes I even think I miss the steady hum of her TV. She had it on all hours of the day and night. You could hear it through the closed door of her room. And she was watching CNN, MSNBC, HSN, HGTV, all of the letters. So she was always up to date on headlines, shopping, home improvement, all of the things. And of course, I miss the possibility of having had a different relationship with her. One in which I was nurturing and attentive. One in which I had been able to record all of the stories from her childhood. And allow her to help me with my newfound interest in sewing. She would have been so pleased to have been able to do that. I also just want to recognize that there may be those of you who may not have such positive memories, if any at all, of those you've lost, or relationships that have been ruptured. And compassion may not feel like an organic experience to extend towards this being at this moment. So if this is your situation, I hope that this Dharma talk may help you to really tap into a greater reservoir of compassion for yourself. And so where does this leave us, or me in particular, as a fallible Buddhist practitioner who suffers, finds relief, and suffers again? So I'm going to end this with a brief snippet of a poem from the Song of Zazen by Hakuin Zenji, who was a Rinzai Zen master who lived from 1686 to 1769. So he said, all beings by nature are Buddha, as ice by nature is water. Apart from water, there is no ice. Apart from beings, no Buddha. Thank you. So we have just under 15 minutes for a Dharma discussion. And I suppose the question would be, how might you view the losses that you've experienced, perhaps bringing in these themes, these Ullambana themes of karma, of sangha, and of compassion? And perhaps we can have a volunteer to hold the mic and bring it around to those interested in speaking.
Good morning. I'd like to start off talking about my own mother, and she made me realize that I'm the product of a single mother with 7 kids in the 50s. And my dad decided he wanted to go live somewhere else. And my mom had 7 children by him. She fed us, she clothed us, she housed us, and she loved us. I had the opportunity to see strength, courage, endurance, and love from this woman. I never met a stronger woman, a most courageous woman in my life other than my mother. Of all the mothers in the world, I'm honored and proud to say she was mine. And at my altar at my house, my mom's portrait sits in a prominent place. I light an incense and a candle before I sit in meditation in her honor and her respect, because she facilitated this human birth, and this human birth has value to me and to others. And I honor her for that. I love my mother. My mother passed 41 years ago, but she has a prominent place in my heart daily. And I needed to say that. I love my mother. Thank you.
What's her name?
Her name is Elizabeth Combs Cunningham.
Elizabeth Combs Cunningham.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about my father, Michael. I lost him about 10 years ago. I'm sorry, hold on. I thought about what we were talking about in the afterlife, and how I don't believe in the afterlife either, but they live on through me, and he lives in pain. It's his dharma of drinking and alcoholism and depression, isolationism. That's what took him down. And when I think of him, I think bad. I think poorly of my father, and I miss him so much. So I understand how to alleviate some of this guilt is to memorialize him in ways through meditation, light an incense and a candle. I don't have a lot of keepsakes of him, but I have a pocket knife, a little tiny Leatherman pocket knife that my mother's father gave to him as a present. He always had it on him. I always had it on him. He lost it once in the flower garden, and I was the one that found it. And sorry, guys, but I'm sorry. And so I'm going to put that in front of my Buddha at home. And I was given this tissue. One thing about him, he was very meticulous. He was very, very particular. He wasn't obsessive compulsive, but he had a way of about things, I would say. He would have done this. What have you done? He would have folded this up. I remember every morning he would sit there and smoke his cigarette and drink his instant coffee, listen to 610 WTBN, Rush Limbaugh, conservative radio. But he would always have a perfectly folded up napkin right there next to the ashtray on top of his cigarette pack with his lighter on top. I miss him greatly, and I thank you all for listening to my story. Thank you.
I forgot that today was this day. And I just want to commend, first of all, everyone who is allowing themselves to feel what you're feeling, like, that's powerful. But the loss that I'm going to describe is a death of a person who's actually still alive on this earth. He was my best friend and the person I was going to marry. And I just know in my gut that he's not okay. And I'm so worried about it. He became a shell of himself in the last 2 years. Okay, we had a 12-year friendship and a 7-year relationship. And he just vanished. One day, I had to, make my own conclusion and all the things. And it's taken me years to really forgive him, forgive myself, find grace in the situation. And I still don't know if I'm gonna be able to love again. Like, that part is still weird, because for some reason there's a part of me that still wonders if he'll ever be okay and come back. But as the years go on, I believe that that's probably not true. But I am a lot of who I am because of this person. And, at his core, he loved nature. He loved music. He was an incredible musician, and it used to annoy me that he would walk around and play his stupid banjo. But now I miss that stupid banjo so much. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge that people can die in our lives and not necessarily go on to a different realm, if you will. They can be somewhere else in this world, and it still feels the same. Thanks.
I had a lot of experiences with my father. Ended up really hating him, and he hated me. About 10 years after he died, we revisited each other. And I was able to take away from that, which was an imaginary thing, take away from that what his strengths were. Strengths which I had ignored while he was my father, because I was focusing on all the nasty things. And I think one thing I have gained is that in looking at people who are no longer here, I'm more able to appreciate them, to get rid of any sort of complications. And I can, voluntarily enjoy my relationship with them and what they have given me, what I've been able to give them. And it reflects on now my day-to-day experiences. Because if you get tied up with someone at work, someone in a marriage, whatever, you're just like in jail. Okay, you can't get anywhere. But if you allow yourself to kind of appreciate what there is to appreciate in them and in you in your life, it really changes a whole lot of things. So it can change what happens right now by appreciating someone who's dead.
Good morning. I'm the oldest of 8, and as I was listening to Musab and other people's stories, I realized something I'm frequently reminded of, that my mother made sure that we always had those school clothes. You had a pair of shoes to wear outside. You had a pair of shoes to wear to school and church, and don't mix them up. Don't mix them up. My father got a new suit every year. But as I grew older, I realized, well, we always had clothes to wear, much of which my mother made. So many people didn't believe us when they'd say, "Where'd you get that shirt?" I would say, "My mother made it." So we finally, for Christmas, got her labels made especially for you by Mary E. Smith. And she would sew them in. But it was as I grew older that I began to realize, and we didn't always get along, and she was flawed, and I am flawed, but she always took care of us before she took care of herself. So we always got new clothes or hand-me-downs. But there were years she didn't get a new jacket for the winter. She gave up for us and our father. And finally, I'd just like to say a buddy of mine called years ago. It was in my drinking days. And it was opening day of baseball season. I was outside having a cold beer, listening to Ernie Harwell call the game with my mother. And my buddy said, "You must be listening to an old recording." I said, "No. They're both in heaven. Mom got permission from Ernie to let me hear him call the game. She's sitting right next to him." So to this day, without a beer in my hand now, I try to listen to Ernie Harwell's calling the game on opening day. Thank you.
Stop there, even though I know there's so many.
Pardon me?
Is there time for another? Oh, okay, one last one.
One momentary request.
Thank you for indulging me. I am so moved to be in the presence of your grief, all of you. And I want you to know that for those of you who spoke, I'll carry it with me. And for those of you that didn't speak, I'll carry it with me everywhere we go. I'll carry it too. You're not alone in it. Because pain, we believe we're alone. And I'm going to ask you, there's a scene in Peter Pan where Tinkerbell's really sick. You all remember when Tinkerbell's really sick? And so we all have to say we believe in fairies so Tinkerbell can get better. So, we got to help each other get out of the bardo. My sister is in a bardo. She is deaf, and she has PTSD so bad that she is often in psychosis. And her daughter died. That's who I'm here to say goodbye to, because I also raised her at times. And her dog died. And her partner is schizophrenic and addicted. And my sister is living in a hell realm, and she has no help for her. So her name is Sarah. Can we all say her name? Sarah. Sarah. And together, it's like we believe in Tinkerbell. Together we can pull her out here in this life. So thank you. That's all.
It's up to you. Okay. I'll move fast.
Every morning when me and my siblings went to school, my mom would always say the same thing when she seen us all. She would say, "You all stick together." 20 years ago, I had a major surgery. I made a decision to allow them to surgically remove 7 feet of my intestines so it could be transplanted into my brother to improve the quality of his life. And I never forget, I had the surgery. They put me in a recovery room, Haju. I was unconscious. And when I regained consciousness, I was in so much pain. And I heard the cry of a small child within me cry out for his mother. I heard myself saying, "Mama, help me, please." My mother had already passed, but I could hear her in my heart saying, "I'm here, son. I'm always here for you." And it taught me a lesson that a mother's love for her children is eternal. It never leaves. not for a moment. So I just needed to share that and get that, and I need a napkin, please. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your presence. For those of you who shared, and I know that there were many more who had wanted to share, and we just didn't have sufficient time. So I really appreciate your vulnerability and the intimacy of this experience. And I hope that through, I don't know, this shared energy, it permeates the heart, the mind, and flows out into the 10 directions. So thank you. So I believe it is time for announcements.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sopa, and I welcome you all. And I know we have quite a few first-timers, and this was quite a service to come through for your first one. Wow. We have a service, so especially welcome, and we hope to see you back here. And we have this every Sunday at 10 a.m. Other things around here, every Saturday from 3 to 5, we have, it's called Together Action, and we work in the garden together. We work in the, whatever needs doing. They tell us when we get here what we need from 3 to 5. Here, maintain temple buildings and grounds. We consider hands-on work a vital aspect of our Buddhist practice. As we care for the temple, we care for ourselves. We have meditation classes on a regular basis. It includes simple stretching, work with the breath, meditation postures, concentration, and mindfulness practice. Everything you need to know to support your home practice. And we have them starting this week. We have a 5-day Thursday evening class, starts on the 11th. And then an overnight version, you come on the 12th, spend the night, and stay through the morning of the 13th. Our first family service of the year is coming up next Sunday, and that's at 9:45. It's every second Sunday of the month during the school year. This time we're going to have a potluck for everyone that will start right after the service. You're warmly invited. Please bring a dish to share. Okay, listen up. You got, if your name's A through G, bring a protein. H through R, bring a vegetable. F through Z, bring a dessert or finger food. It's also smart to bring your own reusable picnic dishes. Okay, and yoga's going to start again too on Tuesday the 16th. It meets here every Tuesday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. In October, we're going to have a special speaker on Wednesday, October 8th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. here in the Buddha Hall. He's a well-known teacher in the Soto Zen tradition. He'll be discussing interdependence, social engagement, and abundance based on his new book, Inside the Flower Garden Sutra, Hyunan Buddhism and the Modern World. Please pick up informational flyer in the foyer and sign up to attend. The temple choir is going to be starting, and I understand Haju wants to talk about that.
I love music, yes. Next Monday, every first Sunday of the month, the choir has a practice at 8:30, and then sings the songs for us at the service. So if you're interested in participating, then it'll be the first Sunday in October to come at 8:30. Say it again, please.
AM or PM?
In the morning?
Yeah, AM, so that we can, it's a fast turnaround. You practice and then we sing the same day. I know that you have been in the choir. Would you like to say something about it? Yeah.
It was a wonderful practice of Buddhism to learn the songs in the morning and then sing them. It was very playful and joyous and exciting, and also, was sometimes nervous, but also it was nice to release that and be like,
Yeah.
we're just singing. We're just all singing.
Yeah.
It was really great.
We'll keep reminding you. The person who does it is Joshua Tobias. And he's a young guy with curly hair and loves music, and he works a lot with kids, so he's good with everybody. Yeah.
This temple holds an online Sangha service every Sunday night from 7 to 8:30. And we join with the New York Temple, our Toronto Temple, those two, and as well as those living at a distance that aren't near a temple. The Zoom link is located on our website. This temple is entirely supported by your generous donations. There's a fishbowl in the foyer for monetary donations, as well as an electronic credit card device. Oops.
And Recovery Dharma will meet at noon in the historic Buddha Hall right next door to the big yellow house in the library.
So in just a moment, we'll rise. Well, I don't know that you need to smooth your mats and cushions because we'll be asking you to clear all of them for our next service. So the mats and cushions on this side will be stacked in the corner there, and the mats and cushions on this side will be stacked on that little makeshift stage over there. And then we'll also ask for some volunteers to set up a total of 16 chairs. So 8 on this side and 8 on this side facing the altar. And for those of you